Hare Krishna. So, in a couple of minutes, we'll be starting the conference. So, we'll be starting in a couple of minutes. So, the conference. Om Adhyanatamidandasya Jnananjana Chaksuramritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manavishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale
Freecontent.com. Your access code is not correct. Friends.
So let me do it once again. Let me log on to the phone and then we'll start over the internet. So today's topic is the Gita and meditation. So we'll be
Freecontent.com. Your access code is not correct. Friends.
So today's topic is the Gita and meditation. So unfortunately, the phone conference is not working. So
Your access code is not correct.
Hare Krishna. So today's topic is the Gita and meditation. So unfortunately, the phone conference is not working. Pooja, I'll call you back. I'm on a conference. I'll call you back. I'll call you back in a few minutes. So today's conference will start today. Looks like I'm not able to log into the phone conference because of a wrong timing. So apologize for that. Those who would like to join by phone. But today we'll be having it only over the internet. So I apologize for the delay. So today we'll start with the first shloka of the 6th chapter. And the first shloka of the 6th chapter, Krishna is talking basically about yoga and meditations. After gaining knowledge, so Krishna is basically talking about how to cultivate the dhyana, how to cultivate dhyana or meditation. So this is very, very important, how to cultivate this meditation. So this dhyana or meditation is very, very important in our spiritual life because mind is the instrument. Mind is the instrument which is used to cultivate spiritual life. If the mind is peaceful, then the instrument of concentration, the instrument used to get out of this material life is strong. If the mind is not peaceful, if the mind is not together, then our chances of cultivating ourselves spiritually is very, very less. So therefore, this mind needs to be cultivated properly. This mind needs to be cultivated properly. This mind needs to be uh, made into a powerful weapon. How do you do this? By the process of meditation. Now let us look at the structure of the mind and how does it work. Now, as explained in one of the earlier classes, the mind has two basic functions, sankalpa and vikalpa. Sankalpa means to accept something and vikalpa means to reject something. Accept and reject. Accept and reject. Accept and reject. Now, how does this work? Now, mind has a certain kind of conditioning. Our minds have a certain type of conditioning. And this certain type of conditioning that is there in the mind, this makes us perceive things in this world in a particular manner. Suppose I am born as a very poor person, for example. If I'm born as a very, very poor person, then I have a conditioning. And the conditioning is that my mind will think, oh, I am a very poor person, I am this, I am that. So whenever you look at this world, you are looking at it as a poor person, from the perspective of a poor person. Gradually, as you grow in life, you get more ideas, you get more thoughts, and you tend to grow in that certain way. So that is one kind of thought process. Then, suppose you are born as a rich person, then your outlook is that of a rich person. And you tend to look at things or perceive things in this world in that way. So, in both ways, the outlook of your mind is based on the conditioning that it has. Or, in other words, the karma from the previous life. So, because the mind is conditioned in a certain way, it thinks of it in a certain way, it perceives things in a certain way. Therefore, this understanding that the mind conditioning makes the mind perceive things in a certain way. Now what happens is, this mind now is conditioned to perceive things in a certain way. Now when it sees something different, or when it sees something from its point of view which doesn't seem to fit in, or which it thinks is wrong, because of our conditioning, the mind gets disturbed. For example, let's go back to that example as suppose you are born as a poor person. So if you are born as a poor person, then what happens is that you tend to think or sympathize with the poor people. You want to get out of it. You want to do something for them and certain things. You are always, that experience stays in your mind and you always look at it that way. Now, because of that, given an opportunity to act in this world, you will always think of it as your base thought process. Now, because of that, everybody in a certain way is conditioned. Somebody is thinking, I am a woman, everybody is thinking, I am a man, I am this, I am that. And all these different thoughts are pounding the mind and identifying the mind with a certain body. And then we act in a certain way based on our thinking and our conditioning. This is what is wrong, because you are looking at something in a conditioned way. Your mind is conditioned. It's just like you are wearing red goggles and everything is appearing red. And everything is appearing as red because you're wearing red goggles, isn't it? But the Bhagavad Gita, it says what the mind meditates upon, it acquires that kind of karma, it acquires that kind of nature. So a poor man is meditating on rich man or good things or how to get out of this poverty. A rich man is thinking, how can I enjoy, how can I do this? So the mind is having different kinds of outlook, but eventually, whether it's a rich man, poor man, Indian, American, Chinese, or whatever it is, eventually you are focusing on something material. That's the point. Whether it is materially good or materially bad, eventually the mind is focusing on something material. And that will never give peace. A poor man, no matter how rich he will become, he will never be satisfied. A rich man, no matter how many billions he has, he wants to become a trillionaire. So similarly, no matter what somebody has or somebody does not have, eventually he will not be satisfied. So what is now required? So what is now really required is focus on something that is not material. So what is required is the mind needs to focus on something that is not material at all. The mind needs to focus on something spiritual. So the mind needs to focus on something spiritual. And what is that spiritual? That spiritual is actually the names of Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So when the mind meditates or focuses on something which is transcendental, like the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, this is transcendental. So because these are all transcendental, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, all these are transcendental. When the mind focuses on these things, the mind also acquires that nature. The mind acquires that nature. And that nature, this transcendental nature, actually brings about peace and happiness in the mind. So brings about peace and happiness in the mind. So this is what is very, very important. So this mind, as long as it is focusing on material things with an objective to do some material activity, be it good or bad, it is stuck and it acquires material qualities. So what are the material qualities? Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsara. Kama means lust. Krodha means anger. Mada. Mada means intoxicated. Ahankar. Moha. Moha means material attachment. Matsara. Matsara means enviousness. Even if Bill Gates is very rich, or anybody else who may be very rich, still they want to be even richer. Means they are not satisfied. They always think of doing something good, and eventually they end up doing something which is not as per what Krishna wants, the God's desires. They don't act as per God's desires. So what happens because of this is that when a man acts born out of the desires of his mind, he is living completely on a mental platform. He is living completely on a mental platform. And because he is living completely on a mental platform, all his activities will again keep him unsatisfied. Because these activities are material, the pleasure and the satisfaction one gets is is limited, and because they are material by nature, Krishna has designed the material world in such a way, no matter how much you acquire, no matter how much success you get, you will not be satisfied. This is the nature. You cannot help it. Even if you become the richest man in the world, you will still not be. How much fun you can have with the body and mind? How much fun you can have? How much eating you will do? How much enjoyment will you have? So the point is that ultimately this mind is limited, this material enjoyment is limited, and because this material enjoyment is limited, the mental enjoyment is also limited. You want to do it over and over and over again. We see many people getting addicted to drinking, smoking, and they cannot get out of it. They somehow they get stuck to it. They know it's bad, they cannot get out of it. This is the nature. So people are suffering in many ways than one because of their own minds. So therefore, this mind can be your greatest friend or can be your greatest enemy. So that is what we will talk in eventually in these chapters. So the nature of the mind is that because of its previous karma, because of desha kala patra, because of being born in a particular place, in a particular family, due to a particular karma, due to a particular desire, this mind, it has a certain nature. And this nature of the mind has to be changed. That is not easy. Only when you begin to meditate on transcendental, on objects that are transcendental to this material nature, only then you will be happy. Only then you will be happy. So, if we actually want to be happy in this world, then what we should do is make the mind our best friend. How do you make the mind your best friend? The answer lies in what Krishna says. So let's read those few verses where Krishna is beginning to explain the process, first the principle behind the meditation, and then the process of meditation. So this will be divided into 8 classes. So I will explain this whole meditation in 8 classes, and today I'm just starting this, and this will be divided into 8 classes, and it will be very beautiful where we will examine closely the nature of the mind. So अनाश्रितः कर्म फलम कार्यम कर्म करोति यः स संन्यासी च योगी च न निराग्निर् न च क्रियाः. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, one who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So he says, Krishna is saying that one who is unattached to the fruits of his work. So the point is, when a person is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as obligated in is in the renounced order of life, he is a true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So the first principle is to get the mind out of sense gratification. So this nature is that when we renounce the fruits of our activities, so the fruits of our activities have to be actually renounced. Means what? The principle number one of spiritual life is that we have to give up trying to enjoy this material world. We have to give up trying to enjoy this material world. So if we give up the desire to enjoy this material world, to exploit this material world for our material pleasure, for our material benefit, this is the first step in meditation. If the goal of meditation is that after meditation I'll acquire some peace and then I will try to enjoy this world again, then we are actually putting ghee on fire. That means when you put ghee on fire, in the beginning the fire will appear to go away, but then it will burn even severely. So that will be our nature. So a devotee of Krishna or a yogi, so the prime focus is material pleasure is limited. First understanding. Physical pleasure is limited. Physical pleasure, eating, having sex, watching something, hearing something, material. It is like squeezing a rubber, a wet cloth. When you squeeze first, there is a lot of water. Then you try to squeeze it more, there is no more water. Material enjoyment just goes away. There is no more material enjoyment in that. It has gone away. Sorry. So this is the nature of this material world, that we cannot, there is nothing more to enjoy. So once this tendency to enjoy materially goes, the principle is fixed. He is a real yogi. That is the beginning of yoga. What I am trying to do is purify myself, purify my mind, and acquire strength, physical and mental strength, so that I can focus on higher objects, higher goals, higher missions of life. So giving up this material sense gratification is the first principle. Therefore, we should give up trying to exploit this world, trying to enjoy this world. And for that, what we should do, give up means what? You acquire $1 million. What will you do with that? A sane man, or one who wants to live peacefully, let's say, even if materially a person is very intelligent, he will keep 50% for savings. Rest of the 50% he will invest in buying like a farm. He will buy some land where there is water, grow some food, keep some oxen for milk, oxen, cows for milk, and live a very simple, nature-oriented, peaceful life. Of course, keeping Krishna in the center. This is what would be an ideal life. And in this way, his investment will give him long-term return. But one who is in the mode of passion, he will buy a big flat, he will buy another flat, he will try to invest money, he will try to invest money here, invest money there, may try to make it double, triple, all these things, and simply get caught up and stressed. The market value is going up and down and this and that. And one who is in Tamoguna will simply spend this money, go to some casino, go to some club and eat and gamble and, you know, throw it on some dance bar and all these things. So that is in Tamoguna. So these are Sattva-guna, Rajoguna and Tamoguna. But one who is transcendental, what he will do, he will build a temple. He'll give 50% to Krishna, keep 50% for himself, and cultivate himself more spiritually. He will live a simple life and he will try to serve Krishna. So, a yogi's first objective is whatever he gets in life in terms of cash or kind, what he will try to do is invest it for Krishna. Try to give it to Krishna. Try to invest in eternal life. Not invest or throw away that money for some little material pleasure. So that is the situation. So a devotee of the Lord, he invests in something that will give him not just long term but eternal benefit. That is very important. That is the first level of meditation, to become unattached to the fruits of action. It's all in the mind. The mind, when conditioned, when the desire is to enjoy, Krishna says, one whose mind is colored with only an intention to enjoy in this world, he will have no serious desire to cultivate spiritual life. So the first principle of meditation is we have to give up trying to enjoy this material world. We should invest and live in this world in the most sensible, nature-oriented manner. This is very, very important. Krishna says such a person is a true sannyasi. Such a person is a true sannyasi. So, a true sannyasi is a person who is in this world but is not trying to enjoy this world, not trying to exploit this world. His nature is to give. His nature is to help. A helping nature, a loving nature, a caring nature. That is the first symptom. He is not attached to trying to exploit this world. He is attached to trying to serve this world in whatever way he can. Whatever he has acquired, he wants to, all the good things, he wants to share with others. So, the second verse, Krishna says, so that is the first principle. In not trying to enjoy this world, that is the first level of meditation, because that is what can spoil your meditation. Which girlfriend does he have? What is he doing with his girlfriend? Or what happened in that movie? How did those lovers enjoy? So just thinking of other types of material enjoyment just destroys your mind, because that is as good as you trying to enjoy. You are trying to enjoy something. That's like watching a movie. Somebody is doing something and you are sitting and enjoying. You are paying for it on top of it. Somebody is doing something and they are paid for it, all artificial emotions. And we pay money and think that is real, and we put in so much emotion and we try to enjoy that. Isn't it? That is the biggest level of stupidity. So, Krishna says, Yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava nahi asanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. What is called renunciation? You should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So, what is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So basically what Krishna means to say here is renunciation is the same as yoga, or linking oneself with Krishna. So one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. So the two processes of yoga, yoga means what? I am trying to connect with Krishna. So I cannot enjoy the world at the same time, have meat eating, illicit sex, intoxication, gambling. I try to do these things and try to connect with Krishna at the same time. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work both ways. You have to leave the objects of material sense gratification behind if you have to connect yourself to Krishna. Sannyasa means also the same thing. You leave the objects of material sense gratification behind. So a sannyasi and a yogi means basically you leave the objects of material sense gratification behind, and a yogi is trying to connect to Krishna, and a sannyasi trying to give up this material world is trying to connect to Krishna. So basically if one, even if he is married, but he lives a life based on Krishna consciousness, then he is actually connecting himself with Krishna. So he is actually connecting himself with Krishna. So this is the main thing. So a devotee of the Lord is giving up the material pleasures so that he can keep his body, mind, and senses free to connect to Krishna. Because if the body, mind, and senses are engaged in material enjoyment, he cannot use those same objects, that is mind, body, and senses. He cannot use them at the same time to meditate on Krishna. No, you cannot do that. It has to be either one. So it is inevitable that the basic principle of meditation is that one gives up the desire of trying to enjoy this material world so that his body, mind, and senses are free more and more. If we spend hours and hours sleeping, if we spend hours and hours eating, if we hours and hours we spend mating, hours and hours we spend defending, there is no scope for spiritual life. Optimum sleeping, optimum eating, and optimum sense gratification, minimum. And when we do everything optimally, keep the body fit and healthy, sleep properly, eat proper diet, Krishna conscious, healthy vegetarian diet, and focus on Krishna, then it is possible to actually come out of this material conditioning. It is possible to come out of material conditioning. But if we spend days, months, hours and hours in a day trying to sleep, hours and hours trying to drive to a restaurant and eat and come back, if you spend hours and hours trying to watch television and trying to enjoy, where is the scope of trying to meditate? So meditation means all these activities are reduced to a minimum. So all these activities are reduced to a minimum, and then because all these activities are actually reduced to a minimum, then most of the time can be used to focus on Krishna. So that is why Krishna is saying right in the beginning that the first principle of trying to meditate is to give up material sense gratification. Basically, one has to give up excessive eating. One should not undereat also. One should eat optimally. One should give up extravagant sleeping, sleep as much as required, sleep at the right time, wake up early in the morning, there is no question of sex life. In this material world, because sex is meant in the human body, sex is meant for procreation only. Sex is meant for procreation only. Therefore, it is very, very important that one should be trained properly in brahmacharya, in celibacy. One should learn or be trained to look at all other women except his wife as a mother, and a woman should be trained to look at every other man other than her husband as a father, and seek a sense of protection from them. Sex is the most disturbing element in somebody's spiritual cultivation. So until and unless we develop this attitude where we are unable to control our desire to enjoy somebody else's body, which does not belong to us, which actually belongs to Krishna, until then one will be disturbed. One's growth in spiritual life will be very, very slow, very, very minuscule. But if one is able to give up this big one, if one is able to see every other woman as a mother, and a woman is able to see every other man except her husband and sons as her father, the sons also are like father, then that woman will achieve peace. So for that, one needs to be situated properly in family life or Varnashrama. So if one is brought up, if the family is together, that is the first success in spiritual life. If you have a peaceful, happy family, that is the first and most important, which the goal of the family is to worship Krishna, is to serve Krishna, is to understand Krishna. Then such a man and his family are very, very lucky, very, very lucky. And if one continues that way, if one is able to cultivate his family life that way, if one is able to focus on Krishna, if one is able to focus on trying to get away from engaging the mind in scheming how to enjoy this world, instead scheming how to cultivate spiritual life, how to make the mind concentrated, how to make the mind peaceful, how to apply Krishna consciousness, that is the first success. So remember, material enjoyment is limited. Material satisfaction that the mind achieves is also limited and temporary. Any material enjoyment, as a matter of fact. But spiritual realization, spiritual happiness is unlimited. Spiritual realization and spiritual happiness is unlimited. And this spiritual realization and this spiritual happiness is spiritual in nature, is unlimited in nature, and it remains forever. But in order to achieve that, one has to be ready to gradually give up material enjoyment. So this is the first principle in trying to cultivate meditational mindset, meditational yoga. So this is the first step. So when this step is achieved, then we can really achieve higher steps of spiritual enjoyment, higher steps of spiritual happiness. So I will stop here. So any quick questions or comments? So next class we are going to see how spiritual enjoyment, the nature of spiritual enjoyment, and how to gradually establish the mind in a spiritual enjoyment, how in spiritual happiness, in spiritual activity, in spiritual satisfaction. So how to achieve that is our next class. So this will be divided into 8 steps. And next class we will discuss on what is the first step. So thank you very much for attending. So looks like there are no questions for today. I will stop here, and let me see you all next week. Hare Krishna. Hare